In the canyon of Echo there's a railroad begun, and the Mormons are cutting and grading like fun. They say they'll stick to it until it's complete, for friends and relations they're longing to meet.
According to Apostle George Q. Cannon, the route of Mormons escaping from the religious persecution laid the foundation for the railroad.
The people came out in wagons planned a lot, because their life depended on it. If they made the wrong decision, they could die. And so they were planned, they read books, there were a lot of guidebooks.
In April 1847, the first group of the Mormon pioneers headed west along the California Trail. After riding on horseback or wagon for 3 months, the first men entered the Salt Lake Valley on July 22nd. Once they settled down in Utah, Brigham Young showed his passionate desire to have a railroad built. He believed the railroad can convert the slow and dangerous trip to a safer and shorter journey. George A. Smith, a cousin of Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, also introduced a bill to the Provisional State of Deseret in relation to the construction of a national railway across the continent. On March 3, 1852, Utah's first territorial legislature sent a memorial to the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives stating,
"Your memorialists, the Governor and the Legislative Assembly of the Territory of Utah, respectfully pray your honorable body to provide for the establishment of a national railroad."
At the same time, the anti-Mormon activists in the Utah Territory convinced President Buchanan that the Mormons were rebelling. In 1857, 1/3 of the United States Standing Army was sent to Utah in what is known as the Utah War. On the opposite side, the tragical Mountain Meadows Massacre also showed that Mormons hostile towards outsiders. 120 were killed, including children. Will the railroad bring more killings? Brigham Young was drowning in questions from all directions. In response, he confidently declared that Mormonism must indeed be a poor religion if it cannot stand one railroad. In 1858, Frederick Lander, a transcontinental explorer and chief engineer, wrote to Washington and to thank Mormons in the road improvement on California to the Mormon Trail.
I was assured by ex-Governor Young that I would be very glad to have his people employed by me, not only because the work was one of public utility, but because it aided the people in getting a little money for the purchase of groceries and what they termed settlement supplies.
The Union Pacific built the railroad based on Lander's trail. In 1862, the U.S. Congress passes the Pacific Railway Act. The building of a transcontinental railroad is authorized. 1 year later, President Lincoln announces that the Union Pacific will start their railroad from Omaha, Nebraska Territory, while Central Pacific began from California. Lamentably, the grasshopper invasion in the spring of 1868 destroyed the crops of Mormons. This natural disaster seriously threatened the livelihood of the Mormons. Farmers were forced to abandon their fields and thousands of men desperately in need of work. Just in time, on May 6, 1868, Thomas Durant, the railroad promoter in Union Pacific, asked Brigham Young to make the railroad grade from Echo Canyon to the Great Salt Lake. Young was eager to have the two tracks meet in Salt Lake City to promote religion, industry, tourism, and economics. He agreed on May 21st to let his people work till November for about $2 per day each. In the contract, the Union Pacific promised to pay 80% of the price monthly and the other 20% on the completion day. This would give the Mormons $1 million for grading, tunneling, trestle work, and bridging. On May 30th, 1868, Sharp, a bishop in the church, and 50 men left Salt Lake City to carve out roadbeds in Weber Canyon. They were reported by the Deseret News to be
as capable a body of blasters as well as to be getting together, and that they will make some big rocks tumble quickly. This was the first quote-unquote gang of graders for the distance between Echo Canyon and the valley on President Young's contract.
Railroads have to be very flat, and in the mountainous terrain that we have here, that means cutting away a lot of dirt and leveling a lot of land, filling in a lot of valleys. Trains don't climb very well, so it was, and at the time in the 1860s, the only way to do that was by hand with a shovel and a pick and a wheelbarrow. And they moved tons and tons and tons.
During the day, they dug through the frozen ground and blasted it with nitroglycerin. At night, they cleared the rubble. Contrasting to the torturous hell on wheels encampments, Mormon campsites were peaceful, safe, and clean. Instead of whiskey, gambling, or violence, they prayed and sang homespun songs around the campfire after work. Mormons were ideal and disciplined workers. Through September, they advanced as far as Lost Creek on the Weber River. There were extensive rocks to remove and 2 tunnels to build in Weber Canyon. Unfortunately, as Union Pacific failed to meet its monthly payments, it was difficult to buy the necessary supplies or take care of Mormon workers. In November, UP replaced Mormon workers with UP employees on the remaining tunneling and other tough rock points work. Quickly, they found out they made less progress than Mormons. UP had to ask for Mormons to resume work. Brigham Young stated that those 4 UP employees couldn't handle the same workload of one Mormon man. By mid-April, companies chose the Midway Promontory Summit instead of the Great Salt Lake as the join point. They decided to hide from Young's. Young had to sue Union Pacific for the remaining payment. However, as a result of a financial crisis, the only compensation was the railroad material. Feeling slighted, Young didn't join the grand celebration at Promontory Summit on May 10, 1869. 7 days later, he broke the ground to build his own railroad called Utah Central Railway with those materials.
It did then, once you had the line, you could build other lines, because you had the main line, Transcontinental Railroad, but then you built a line from Ogden to Salt Lake, or you would build a line from Echo to Park City. You know, a lot of these little branch lines started.
They all became part of the UP Railroad later. Aside from Brigham Young, perhaps no individual wanted to have a railroad built than Commander Patrick Connor. At the 1880 Liberal Rally, he declared his intention of helping forward the good work of regulating and Americanizing Utah. He hoped the train and mining industry would bring more non-Mormons to Utah to reduce the influence of Young's. As a result, the railroads brought more immigration, interstate trade, and public discourse to Americanize Utah. The profitable metal mining, reformed agriculture, lumber yards, banks, stockhouses, and shipment areas were built. From 1850 to 1890, the Utah employment trend showed the dramatic increase of financial services from 5 workers to over 1,900. The population of Utah increased from 11,380 to 210,770. The number of farms in the nation increased from 2 million to 6 million by the 1900s. Furthermore, for the first time, it linked the country from sea to shining sea. The West economy was connected to the national economy. Today, this U.S. Census Bureau determined Utah was the fastest growing state in the country. It also has the highest literacy rate, the highest number of people with a college education. The 2002 Olympics, hosted by Salt Lake City, became among the most successful Winter Olympics in history. What's the secret recipe? We believe it is because the Utah pioneers created the solid base for Utah's success. after going through the numerous tragedies. The Utah pioneers created the solid base for Utah's success after going through the numerous tragedies.